How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. Narration by Riazul Islam Khan. I have known Harold Abbott for years. He lives at 820 South Madison Avenue, Missouri. He used to be my lecture manager. One day he and I met in Kansas City, and he dropped me down to my farm at Belton, Missouri. During the drive, I asked him how he kept from worrying, and he told me an inspiring story that I shall never forget. I used to worry a lot, he said, but one spring day, 1934, I was walking down a street in Webb City when I saw a sight that banished all my worries. It all happened in 10 seconds, but during those 10 seconds, I learned more about how to live than I had learned in the previous 10 years. For 2 years, I had been running a grocery store in Webb City, Harold Abbott said, as he told me the story. I had not only lost all my savings, but I had incurred debts that took me 7 years to pay back. My grocery store had been closed the previous Saturday, and now I was going to the Merchants and Miners Bank to borrow money so I could go to Kansas City to look for a job. I walked like a beaten man. I had lost all my fight and faith. Then suddenly I saw coming down the street a man who had no legs. He was sitting on a little wooden platform equipped with wheels from roller skates. He propelled himself along the street with a block of wood in each hand. I met him just after he had crossed the street and was starting to lift himself a few inches over the curb to the sidewalk as it tilted. As it tilted his little wooden platform to an angle, his eyes met mine. He greeted me with a grand smile. "Good morning, sir. It is fine morning, isn't it?" he said with a spirit as I stood looking at him. I realized how rich I was. I had 2 legs. I could walk. I felt ashamed of myself. I felt ashamed of my self pity. I said to myself, if he can be happy, cheerful, and confident without legs, I certainly can with legs. I could already feel my chest lifting. I had intended to ask the merchants and miners bank for only $100, but now I had courage to ask for 200. I had intended to say that I want to go to city to try to get a job, but now I announced confidently that I wanted to go Kansas to get a job. I got the loan, I got the job. I now have the following words pasted on my bathroom mirror, and I read them every morning as I shave. I had the blue because I had no shoes, until upon the street I met a man who had no feet. I asked Eddie Rickenbacker what was the biggest lesson he had learned from drifting about with his companions in life rafts for 21 days, hopelessly lost in the Pacific. The biggest lesson I learned from that experience, he said, was that if you have all the fresh water you want to drink and all the food you want to eat, you ought never to complain about anything. Time Daily Rain Time Daily ran an article about sergeant who had been wounded in Guadalcanal, hit in the throat by shell fragment. This sergeant had had 7 blood transfusions. Writing a note to his doctor, he asked, "Will I live?" The doctor replied, "Yes." He wrote another note asking, will I be able to talk?" Again, the answer was yes. He then wrote another note saying, "Then what in the hell I am worrying about? Why don't you stop right now and ask yourself, what in the hell am I worrying about?" Y- You will probably find that it is comparatively unimportant and insignificant about 90% of the things in our lives, right? If we want to be happy, all we have to do is concentrate on the 90% that are right and ignore the 10% that are wrong. If we want to be worried and bitter and have stomach ulcer, all we have to do is to concentrate on the 10% that are wrong and ignore the 90% that are glorious. The words think and thank are inscribed in many of the Cambrian churches of England. These words ought to be inscribed on our hearts too. Think and thank. Think of all we have to be grateful for, and thank God for all our boons and bounties. That's it.